Holy crap, did you hear GPT can read your mind?
I knew you were going to say that. Holy crap, nine stories.
Yeah, busy day. Busy week.
It's a busy week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll leave the mind reading to the end because, that's how we do our clickbait here.
All things AI.
All things AI.
Right. But here's the thing. The first story is kind of urgent and nothing you can really do about it, but it just happened like at 9 o'clock this morning. And this is May 4th, 5/4, which is famously Dave Brubeck Day.
That was May the Force be with you.
Jazz fans will get that. Everybody else will wonder what the hell I'm talking about.
Including me.
Yeah. Okay. Listen to Dave Brubeck. Time out. Anyway, Take 5 is the name of that song. So, Mastodon Social is experiencing issues right now as we...
Under spam attack?
Yeah, the spam attack. And I saw this on Mastodon and somebody was sort of incredulous that nobody's posting about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, maybe you were the first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says, we've identified and blocked the spam sources and banned all spam accounts involved in the attack, continuing to monitor the situation.
Yeah, this could definitely, this could either be a spam attack, which is somebody's trying to, get their content out there and they've overdone it, or it could be a denial of service and they're using spam as their delivery. We don't know what Elon, the attacker was trying to actually accomplish here.
What are you saying?
My God.
He would
never do that.
So is it usable at all? Can you pull anything up, or is it?
I haven't had any issues. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been using it since. Yeah, it's usable.
Okay, well, I think good recovery.
Yeah.
I think honestly, mostly you want to just be concerned with if you see anything fishy emails or something like that come in. If Mastodon's being targeted as a platform, they ultimately may target the platform, but they may target the users as well.
Right.
So just be careful what you click on that may be related to Mastodon, because it may be something that's not what it's supposed to be.
We don't really talk about denial of service that often. We should probably talk a little bit about it. We get a lot of stories, but denial of service is kind of an annoyance thing. It's really serious when it's like emergency services or military channels and things like that.
Right.
But most of the time, if you can't buy socks, it's bad for the vendor, but it's not, an emergency for the world.
Right.
And there are ways to mitigate denial of service, but they're expensive, and they may be more expensive than just weathering the attack and waiting for it to end. You can use Cloudflare and other content delivery networks, and they do a great job of shedding this load and making it so that they can't generate enough traffic to bring you down, but it's very expensive.
Wow.
And so it's a kind of double-edged sword.
All right. So the next story is the Ars Technica article on by default Edge feature seems to be sending all the URLs you visit to Bing.
The road to hell is paved with good
Oops.
intentions.
So this is
They have this cool feature.
Yeah.
Let's turn it on by default.
A relatively recent on by default feature that allows you to, quote, follow content creators in Edge itself. If you follow lots of channels or individual users across multiple websites, the feature promises to create a site-agnostic feed for updates from those creators that you can access in one place, plus a way to save videos and other files to your collections. To drive more people to use the feature, it also designed to show you suggestions about creators you could be following.
What could go wrong?
Boy, that's awfully convenient, isn't it, Patrick?
It is awfully convenient.
Yeah, super convenient.
Super convenient. Yeah, right.
So you could read a lot of, malicious intent on this, but it's probably just the developers were a little less supervised than they should be, and they thought this was a fantastic feature that everyone would want.
Yeah.
So let's turn it on by default so we have the data when you want it. And the problem is it looks and feels like spying.
Yeah, I definitely think Hanlon's razor applies here, which is never attribute to malice what can be explained with incompetence.
Yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just no good. Hey, you know what I haven't seen in a while, Dwayne?
What's that, buddy?
Vietnamese porn hacking.
You're not looking in the right places.
Where should I look, Dwayne?
www. No, I'm not going to give that out, children. You don't have to find it on your own. It's funny. I see these articles sometimes, and I swear that they just make up new words all the time. But this one's interesting. This one's from the Hacker News. Vietnamese threat actors infect 500,000 devices using malware posting.
Malware posting.
Malware. Just let that roll off your tongue.
Yeah.
Malware posting.
That's 3 different words.
Malware.
Concoct. That's German level.
Maybe it's posting in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Maybe.
Maybe not so much.
Maybe
not so much.
Right.
See, this one's interesting in that. So what happens, just to distill it down, they post, and it could be in this particular case, it's adult content.
Mm-hmm.
And when they post, they pay for their advertisements, their posts, to be almost like ads, where it has a higher priority to be showed up and amplified. So very much like if we were selling a service and we posted on Facebook, because this is on Facebook and Twitter, we could pay to have our posts show up more in searches.
Right.
So they're actually paying to do this. And have those posts show up.
Isn't that Google's model of advertising right there in a nutshell?
Pretty much. Oh, there are so many malicious ads that happen on Google and that sort of stuff. It's absurd.
Yeah.
Where they go, for 10 cents, we'll get a click.
Yep.
And we'll probably pull a couple $100 from that person. So it just makes sense.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, what they do is they have these posts. Obviously, they're of an adult nature.
Yep.
And when someone goes and clicks on that post, follow me here.
Okay.
They don't get instantly infected.
Okay.
When they click on the post for the Facebook ad, it then brings them to a malicious link. That link then downloads a malicious zip.
Oh.
That zip needs to be extracted by the user.
Okay.
The user then needs to go into the zip and see what they think are photos, but are executables. Then they double click on these executables.
So,
and it opens up a magical portal.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
So you got me right there at it's social engineering.
Yeah.
At its finest. At its finest.
finest.
And it's funny too, because you look at it, you look at the path, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like they've been, for me, when I start looking at these articles, I go, okay, is there a way for you to buffer overrun the default Windows JPEG parser inside of Windows image processing so that I can actually just execute code browsing it on the web? No, they just have a zip file you download that has an executable and you just happen to click on it.
It's not so sophisticated. Yep. What fascinates me is if you go to this Hacker News website, they've got 4 example pictures that have been pixelated beyond belief, but
which are horrifying.
They're horrifying. If you think of them as Rorschach tests, that first one looks like a sunny side up egg on top of a piece of thick meatloaf. That
you should stop talking.
Probably is. Probably
is. I don't even want to know what that second one is, but
is it food porn?
But they are kind of like an interesting Rorschach test that you could probably get away with passing around saying, what do you see in these pictures?
Right. I see a robin. Okay. You're good.
Yeah. That first one's really horrifying.
Yeah. So honestly, if you're looking for, I won't go down that path. If you're looking for content on the internet and it's images, videos, or sound files, and they have you download a zip and then extract it, and when you double click on a file, it says, "Do you want to run this?" Generally,
you should run. Don't run it. You should run.
You should
stand up. Run away from your computer.
Run it and thin out the gene pool.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny. I have been asked this before. There are ways that we've used in phishing campaigns and tactics and that sort of stuff where I can force something to auto download to your computer without you even knowing about it.
Right.
Like you visit a website and it literally just downloads.
But you'd still have to open it.
A thing. But you still have to open it. You still have to run it. So
it's kind of like, when you buy like a new computer or something and you open up the box and there's these little desiccant packets in there and they say, do not eat. right?
Delicious.
Who?
Wait a second, but
Who buys
there are.
a laptop or an electronic piece of gear and then says, "Hey,
A mint."
yeah, it's a mint."
I wonder how tasty these desiccants are.
So don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So needless to say, the whole point of this article is, listen,
Don't do that.
if you're on Facebook and you start to see some illicit ads for certain things, don't download and unzip them and start running executables.
Right.
You will get your computer infected. And then what's interesting too is they're not stupid, right? They're using these tactics and they're saying like the accounts that they're using, they're saying are photographers. So of course they'd have pictures and that sort of stuff. So, they're using some smarts to bypass some of the normal ad filters, but still.
Hackers want to predict your behavior. So like, for example, when we laid a minefield, we would put the minefield on the route that we expected the enemy to follow.
Is that a euphemism for what happened after that dinner last night before you guys hit the road?
No, this is real
so
minefield
good.
stuff. But
That
when you
dinner
lay
was
that
so
minefield,
good.
when the first person hits the mine, first vehicle hits the mine, you look at everybody behind him and say, where are they going? And that's where you put the other mines.
You're talking about literal minefields. I thought this was a hacker deployment or
Right?
something.
Wow.
You're talking about
No, I'm talking about psychology of adversarial
warfare.
psychology.
of warfare. Okay.
Yeah. So if
Psychology
you're
of warfare.
laying a minefield, you want to get the first vehicle, but then you want to get all the others when they try to get off the road to avoid the mines.
So I don't, unfortunately, have a theme song for its murderous career advice. How to effectively kill people by Patrick Hines. First
It's
edition.
tanks. They're not people. They're tanks. So you
Lost
got to think of them as
opportunity,
tanks.
Carl. Lost opportunity.
Oh, sometimes I'm horrified.
Are you surprised that I would talk about
Yeah,
you've met
no.
me.
I know I have.
No.
So is everybody else now, Mr. Tomahawk.
Mhm.
Who wants the next one here?
Patrick does.
I think this is a good idea. So AirTags and other tile trackers.
Well, let's start with the story itself.
Yeah, Apple and Google introduced standard to combat AirTag and tile tracker misuse.
Okay.
So if you haven't heard of these, welcome back from the island. Apple has these things called AirTags and tiles are convenient. You put them on your keys or you put them in your kid's backpack. You put them in places so that you can track where things are. Some people put them in the cars of their kids to make sure they're not speeding and they're going where they say they're going. And there's lots of examples of this where it's very benign.
And you know why they work? Because they're not $15 cheap Chinese things
That's
that
true.
you
Yeah.
get by clicking.
Mm-hmm.
They're not that expensive though, but the way they work is they get picked up by any passing device. So if you have an Apple AirTag, for example, if every time an Apple phone or device goes by it and detects it with their power signature, because they're detecting it locally, it pings back to Apple and says, hey, I saw this tag with this ID at this location.
Wow.
And then they
Powerful and convenient, but also extremely insecure, isn't it?
Well, so that there's that aspect, but the way it's been misused is I could put one on the car of someone I'm stalking. I could slip one in the pocket of someone I'm trying to follow and rob. And so there's lots of misuses. And so Apple started to do this, and they have a mechanism where they'll tell you, hey, you're being followed by an AirTag that's not registered to you. But
I'm being followed by a yellow submarine.
But now Google and Apple are trying to work together so that each other's tags have that kind of defense. Because if you had an Android phone and you were walking and somebody flipped an AirTag in you wouldn't get notified. And now they're trying to close that gap.
Wow. Speaking of Yellow Submarine, I remember watching that movie on VHS when my daughter, it wasn't that long ago. My daughter was probably like 9. So it's probably, 15, 20 years ago, whatever. And she came out of her room and she sat down on the couch next to me and looked at it. And then a couple minutes later, she looked at me and said, "What's this, Daddy?" I said, "It's kind of like Teletubbies for grown-ups."
Kind of.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Yellow Submarine since long before there were VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
You were on Laserdisc?
It was what was on the one channel we got at the time.
Oh my gosh.
So this is a step in the right direction. And that's the way a lot of the world works. There's technical innovation and then the companies try to catch up with their own inventions, and then they partner with others to protect the wider space, and then eventually 10 years later the government legislates on it, and they've already missed the boat typically.
Yeah. Kind of like ChatGPT right now.
What?
Hey, we'll talk about that and some other things when we come back after a break. So stick around. We'll be right back. And we're back. You're listening to Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin, the WTF guy. That's Patrick Hines, the Tomahawk guy. And that's Dwayne LaFlotte, the mad hacker.
The let it all burn guy.
My stuff burns.
Yeah, that's right. Quite efficiently.
I think they have a pill for that. You'll be all right.
All right. So this one, who wants DHCP v6?
Ooh, I do. This one's actually really cool. So this is the 0-day initiative. There is a remote code execution in Microsoft's Windows DHCP version 6 service. So I know DHCP version 6. We've been talking about it for 1,000 years because apparently we're going to run out of DHCP 4 addresses 40 years ago.
Should we talk about what that all means?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol is the way that a computer joining a network that hasn't been pre-configured with an address is given an address. And so the computer connects and says, hey, I'm a DHCP client. Can anybody give me an address? Because it's necessary for all protocols that each computer has a distinct address.
Right.
And so the DHCP servers all chime in if they can support the network you're on and say, hey, I can do it. And whoever answers first, they start negotiating with the client and the others stand down. And so DHCP 6 is a modern, advanced version. It's been TCP/IP, which is what DHCP works with, has been around for 40, 50, it's probably 60 years now if I do the math.
Yeah. Most people still on version 4, which is
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So
the original popular.
Yeah. But most of your routers nowadays do ship with DHCP version 6.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. So does DHCP version 6 work with IP6?
Yes.
So that's why it's 6?
That's why it's version 6.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And so let's talk about the difference there. An IP address that we're used to seeing with 4 numbers separated by periods, dots, that's IP version 4, like 192.168.1.1. That's an IP4 address.
Yep.
It's 32 bits. And that's the way the internet used to work. And they ran out of addresses. And before they completely ran out of addresses, they added a new standard called IP version 6 that uses 128 bits.
And before that, they created NAT.
Right.
Network Address Translation.
Right, it's true.
So that every computer connected in your home didn't have to have a publicly routable IP address.
Right.
And that saved us a lot of addresses to get us to the point where IP6 was around.
Right.
So NAT's made IP6 not as urgent as it was, but we're still getting there. We're still getting to the point where NAT's not saving us and people have to use IP version 6 addresses. And so you need DHCP for that address space.
DHCP 6.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, like most people aren't even going to know, they're just going to turn on their computers and it's just going to work. It's one of these under the hood things that unless somebody asks you or some software asks you to put, paste in your IP address because you're connecting one local computer to another, you're probably never even going to know or care.
No.
Yeah. And so this exploit will get a lot of hype because for 2 reasons. One, it's a remote code execution at the lowest level.
Yeah.
So this is if I execute a proof of concept code, which there is proof of concept code out there, and I'm able to coerce the DHCP server into responding to me. So as soon as I come onto a network, you have a raw address. You have a MAC address, which is the raw address of your network card. But you don't actually have an IP address. You can't talk on the IP protocol until you get a proper IP address, whether it's a V4 or a V6.
And whether it's a 192.168.100 or...
Yeah, or an FF
routable
:02. Yeah.
Yeah, routable or non-routable. NAT addresses are not routable. They can't exist outside your house or whatever. Yeah.
So once you get this address, now you're able to communicate with devices on the network, and you're good to go, right? So what's interesting about this is, like I said, it is a remote code execution, so it does allow you to do this remotely, of course, because right, you're on the network requesting an address, and you are going to run pretty much a system every single time because the DHCP server is running a system. That's the lowest level sort of user on a particular network. You're either like network service slash system slash some administrator. It depends on how they're running it, but for the most part, really easy for you to parlay this into a administrative account on that particular box. And so that sounds scary, right? I can run this POC code and I could just take over the computer, which crazy, right? This is a heap-based buffer overflow. So we talked a little bit about this.
What'd you call me?
You heard me. See, we talked about stack. Stack is in computer memory. Stack is where executable code runs. The heap is where the computer stores things that it needs to recall for later. So there's usually these buckets, and there's all sorts of attacks on heap, like the House of Pain and the House of Orange and all sorts of weird stuff. So in this particular case, this is a heap-based overflow.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in that, a heap-based overflow does give you, is a little bit harder to manipulate, but this one seems relatively stable. So sounds all scary. However, one thing I will remind you, this can only happen if the attacker is on your network. Like Carl had said.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah. Right. Like Carl had said, none of these addresses are routable over the internet.
Right.
So you can't execute this attack from, Russia on a network unless you're already on that network.
Right.
So is it still dangerous? Yes. Should you patch? Yes. There is a patch for the DHCP svc.dll.
Right.
But for the most part, it's, I wouldn't worry about it.
More and more, and this has been a trend for years now, more and more, there are very few like devastating hacks, devastating vulnerabilities. But what happens is hackers like Dwayne and his team, they know about enough of these to put them together and chain them together so they can, this one's going to get us onto the network and this one's going to get us remote code execution. And it's that chaining. So a while back, the last big, well-publicized, full-blown access Apple exploit, iOS exploit was selling on the black market for like $2 million, I heard reported. It was 7 different vulnerabilities chained together. And if any one of them hadn't existed, there was no vulnerability.
Right.
And so while it is like, yes, this is, in order to use this alone to get you, they'd have to already be on the network.
And compare that to the, what was it, the Vietnamese porn chain.
Right.
It was you see ad, you click on ad, you run executable. Right. Very short chain, not something super simple to defeat. So,
but still requires human error.
It does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what hacking runs on.
The song "I'm Not Your Stepping Stone" comes to mind here. It's a stepping stone. It could be one link in a chain that could be used. So no matter how insignificant you think this patch is, patch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to talk about something that just showed up today.
Is it an exploit? Are things burning?
Literally 3 hours ago, Kelly, my wife, came in and said, "Hey, I just updated my iOS version. There's a new update." And I was like, there is a new update. Turns out it's a new iPhone Rapid Security Response update. This is new. And so they released this new type of software update. It's just an interim between versions update. And it's for important security improvements. For example, improvements to the Safari web browser, the WebKit framework stack, and other critical system libraries. So it's a security update. It literally took a minute to install from when you said install to when it rebooted and you had your phone back.
Super fast.
So I love that because no friction.
Yeah, agreed. And there were 2 really great parts about this story. One, what this update does is it allows for quicker deployment of security updates. My understanding it is from Apple. So if they find something that's devastating in the market, They now, once you accept this update, have the ability to deploy partial updates, right? So they can say, hey, we're just going to patch this one thing real quick.
Yeah.
So that the Pegasus software doesn't work or whatever it is, right? To make sure that they're keeping you as secure as possible as opposed to waiting for everybody to go and deploy the latest updates.
Yeah.
But the most important part of this story, folks, is the fact that Carl didn't know about this.
Right.
I didn't know about this.
Yep.
Patrick didn't know about this.
Yep.
But Carl's wife
Yeah.
came and said, hey, security nerds.
She just happened to be on the page that said there was a software update.
It's so awesome. Good for her. And you know what? That's awesome that she was like, I'm going to apply this and had that mentality. See, Carl,
Yep.
you've been rubbing off on her. Good job.
Either that or vice versa. I don't know. Yeah.
But it just goes to show that honestly, the security field is moving in so many different directions and so quickly.
Right.
Even though the three of us are experts and really good at what we do and hyper focused on technology.
Spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are still things that we'll miss. So honestly, this was a great catch.
Yep. Very cool. All right. Who wants the next one? Hackers start using double DLL sideloading.
I'll take it. This one's cool. So we were just talking about chains, right?
Yeah.
And I'll introduce this one real quick. So this is a Bleeping Computer article. Hackers start using double DLL sideloading to evade detection. So
I can define two of those words. DLL, Dynamic Link Library, which are executables that load in memory and get shared between applications or between. Now they don't get shared between applications because we have isolation in Windows anyway. But these are reusable libraries that you can use in this application and that application as a programmer, right?
Right.
You, the user, probably will never see them. Sideloading means instead of going through like the Windows Store or, the Apple Store or the iOS Store to download and install something, I'm just going to connect it to my computer and use some mechanism to copy an app onto or some files onto my phone. That's called sideloading.
Yeah, and it's a good point because in this particular case, so it says the APT hacking group known as Dragon Breath Golden Eye Dog or APTQ27 is destroying.
I told you not to ever call me that again.
The Golden Eye Dog.
Dragon Breath.
It's funny. Did we talk about? I think we talked about this last week. Microsoft is changing all of the hacker names over to weather.
What?
I don't remember if we talked about that. I missed them in an article I just read.
Typhoon.
Microsoft is reclassifying, all of the hackers, hacking groups out there so that they're just weather. It's like
that's so they can bring awareness to global warming issues.
This is believed to be Chinese group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're targeting Chinese versions of Windows, and I suspect that they're trying to go after the dissidents because right now China's biggest concern is controlling the narrative amongst their population.
Yeah. It's always been their concern.
Well, before we get into that and controlling the narrative, let's talk about the tech because I know you want to talk about the politics.
Absolutely.
So in this particular case, sideloading a DLL, what's interesting in when you load an application, there's always going to be DLLs or dynamically linked libraries that get loaded with that application. There are libraries that your application uses, maybe for graphics or sound or whatever. Those libraries are then loaded. They're usually not loaded out of a static path. So you don't say go to /Windows system32 / sound.dll and load that one.
Right.
You just say load sound DLL. And what happens is the application starts looking in the local directory first for that DLL.
Yeah.
And then starts walking its way back through the path structure in your user path to find that DLL. So what's happening here is they're taking the DLL and putting it in the same directory as the application, running the application, allowing the DLL to load, but then having that DLL then load a malicious loader that loads another DLL. So you're loading a DLL from sideloading a DLL, which makes it a little bit harder for the application to follow what's going on.
Yeah.
So when you have antivirus going, okay, well, I've looked at this DLL. Now I don't need to worry about that DLL. But when that DLL then loads another DLL, antivirus needs to have a hook into the first DLL, which makes it a lot harder for it to actually discover what they're doing. So this is just an interesting evasion tactic that they're using right now. But onto you. And one of the DLLs is actually an encrypted text file that gets decrypted and then sideloaded. So interesting tactics. We're always looking for great tactics for bypassing AV when we're attacking customers. This one, I guarantee, will show up in our toolkit. But Patrick, China.
So yes, it's been showing up. It's targeting Chinese versions of Windows. It's showing up mostly in Asia. And right now, if you haven't seen the news, there's news that there have been Chinese police stations set up covertly in Western countries, in Canada and the United States, to harass, intimidate, and in some cases kidnap Chinese nationals who've fled, basically dissidents, if you will, and keep them in line, because they're still talking to people back home and they don't want anyone to dispute the party line, literally the party line.
Yeah.
And so now that there's one person pretty much running all of China, Xi Jinping, you're not allowed to say the emperor has no clothes.
Right.
And so we're seeing a lot more of China's energy being focused on them controlling the narrative to their people, not necessarily trying to get to us. This is a pretty valuable technique. It's not unheard of, but it's making it more known. It's making it more, by doing this, by having this come out, everyone's gonna be better protected against this, which means that it's not gonna be as easy for them to use it against the U.S. government if something happens.
When you're a hacker, you want to not expose your methods, and if you're going to use a tactic, you're probably only going to use it once, right?
Well, or it's going to, sooner you use it, the sooner the world is going to adjust and it's no longer going to be effective.
Right.
What we see over and over again is dictators, like China and Russia and North Korea and Iran. They tend to use tools.
Tom Brokaw. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's a commentator. Never mind.
They tend to use their tools as soon as they develop them. And the West gets used to them. The West typically doesn't use them unless it really needs to, like Stuxnet. And we're surprised that the West has any competence at all in these things because we don't see them in the news all the time.
Yeah.
But when they get caught, there's almost always with something like really drastic. And so I think the narrative is wrong. The superpowers of cyber are Western powers, not the dictatorships.
Right.
I hope.
Minus the tater.
Okay. So, shall we get to the godfather of AI quitting Google to warn people of AI risks?
The godfather.
So,
you better stop using that AI.
You come to me.
Geoffrey Hinton's been a force in AI for a long time. And he's quit Google because he feels that some of his life's work is being used in ways that's going to be hurtful to society. Now, make no mistake, my understanding of this is that Hinton's not saying AI is going to take over the world and kill and crush humanity. That's not his take.
Yeah.
His take is it's going to be used for misinformation. It's going to be used for manipulation, which I fully support. But he's not in the Elon Musk crowd of it's going to doom humanity by, rising up and killing us. And I'm in that same boat. I don't believe we're anywhere close to the general AI to rise up and kill us anytime soon. But we're definitely in the place where you can't trust even things that you see, even video and audio, you can't trust because ChatGPT, for example, could write a message in the style of someone if they have enough samples.
Can I give you an even more incredible example?
Please.
Yes.
All right. So go with a PC that has a speaker that you can listen to AI1, AI and the number 1 or the numeral 1 .securitysthisweek.com. Go there now.
AI1. Ooh.
So it's a YouTube video and it says the Beatles, new AI. It says, "We love you lads. No copyright infringement intended. This is an AI creation." If you listen to it, the claim and everybody else thinks that this was created completely by AI. That's Paul McCartney's voice, man. Listen to it.
Yeah, I'm listening to it right now.
That's really good. What?
This is what I said. What? Somebody posted this on Facebook and they were, talking about the future is here, man. You got to get on it and this and that and get ready because it's coming. And everybody's like, somebody said, and these are all my musician friends on Facebook. Somebody said, this is no different when they came out with synthesizers and then drum machines and stuff. And I said, oh, but it is, because synthesizers and drum machines can help a musician, create music, but this helps anybody fake music. And guess what? They could be faking your voice.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is the same as just another technology thing, another technology bump, because it can be used, as this Google guy says, for misinformation. And this is like the ultimate misinformation. In fact, it turns out to be complete BS, because if you go to AI2.security this week, that will bring you to the original Paul McCartney song that this was based on. That is that song. And my friends on Facebook said the AI creator added John and other small stuff. Notice Paul's voice in the real version sounds older.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So even the announcement that it was all AI was BS. That's nuts.
Well, the announcement that it was completely generated by AI is complete garbage.
Right.
But it's still,
Well, we'll get there. We're going to get there.
But it was still enough for people to believe it. Like, and that's where we are now with ChatGPT and stuff. Mm-hmm. People will say, as this person said, that this is 100% AI, and now everybody believes it.
Yep.
Hey, so maybe someday.
We've been through disruption before.
Yes, we have.
This is going to disrupt a much larger portion of our lives at once, than we're used to. So, like, for example, Napster disrupted the music industry.
Right.
Streaming disrupted the TV industry.
Yep.
This is a major disruption, and it's a disruption along many different axes that we're not used to.
Yeah. And
that's the fact that change is just coming faster. But I think that in 30 years, this will be a yawn. It's like, oh yeah, people were really upset about this. I don't know why, because, I'm just used to it now. Or there's some technology that will be able to detect the frauds better, because that's how you do it. Maybe you use your AI to figure out what is real and what isn't, and it gives you a score that says this is 99% sure this is real, and I only want to see sources of information that are 99% or higher.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then, the dumb people, set their scores very low and they get fooled.
Right. But I mean, just the fact that you have to now, in the back of your mind, no matter what, people listening to this say, did Carl really say that? Or did Patrick really say that? You can also use it as an excuse. If somebody digs up a tape of me saying something that I regretted. Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't. That was fake news, fake AI, man. Deep fakes.
Yeah, but I was in person a witness. That was a sophisticated AI.
Yeah, well, I know it's an impressive too, because you can not only do that with voice, but you can do that with video, right? With deep fakes and that sort of stuff. You're like, yeah, that wasn't me. I wasn't there. I don't know what to say. Yeah,
we were up at West Point the other day, Dwayne and I briefing the cyber tech group team of cadets. It was very interesting conversations. And we were talking about, technology and disruptions and things like that. And it's going to just keep coming.
Yeah.
I had very deep conversations about AI with some very concerned people. But we have to think about it. It's going to keep getting disrupted, and it's going to happen faster and faster.
Yep, that's right. So that brings us to the clickbait.
Clickbait.
Scientists use GPT AI to passively read people's thoughts in Breakthrough. And now you're thinking, and this is the same thing, right? So when you read the subtext, it says an AI model similar to ChatGPT was combined with fMRI readings to non-invasively decode continuous language from subjects, a new study reports. Okay, they were in the MRI machine.
Yeah. You would notice if you were an MRI machine.
Yes.
And somebody was asking you questions.
Or maybe I could build one out of a doorway.
Maybe.
And you wouldn't notice.
God forbid somebody walks through with metal fillings.
So this whole passively read people's thoughts, I'm sorry that we led you to believe that, but sucker.
Woo woo. But it's cool. It's cool stuff, though.
Yeah.
I think we need to read this deeper. I haven't dug into the whole thing, but I would be shocked if it could just pick a random person and start reading.
All right, you ready? The decoder was able to interpret the gist of stories that human subjects watched and or listened to, or even simply imagined using an fMRI brain pattern, and achieved that an achievement that essentially allows it to read people's minds with unprecedented efficacy.
Right, but they need to have experience with that person's mind to understand what is being accessed where. I doubt that they can do that with someone who have no data on.
I don't think you're right about that, Patrick.
Oh, wait. This gets better. They said passive. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means, it's not an active thing. But currently the language decoding is done using an implanted device that requires neurosurgery.
Yeah. So they can do it right now if you get a surgical alteration.
If they put you under, jam something in your brain.
Right.
Right. Well, because if you think about it, I'm pretty sure I've taken some neuroscience courses back in the day. If I'm storing the concept of time in my brain, you're probably not storing it in the same place in the same way. So they have to figure out where time is in your consciousness.
Yeah, I see.
And once they do that, then they say, oh, he's thinking of time again.
Right. And that's how some of these mind reader tools work, where you say, think of pushing forward, and then it reads your brain patterns and then pattern matches it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it can see that and recognize that. Right. But it's not like one size fits all. Where I store the concept of time and everyone else does is unique.
Right. I'd be interested to know in this article, and I didn't read the whole thing, if they pattern matched between what was actually being shown to them on the screen and in the video, and compare that between different people.
They did. This is actually interesting. So there's if you go a little bit further down, there's an image, and they talk about what the actual stimulus was and what the decoded stimulus was. So let me give you an example. One of the actual stimuli were, I got up from the air mattress and pressed my face against the glass of the bedroom window, expecting to see eyes staring back at me, instead finding only darkness. So that was the stimulus.
Okay.
What the language model and the MRI decoded was, I just continued to walk up to the window and opened the glass. I stood on my toes and peered out. I didn't see anything and looked up. Again, I saw nothing. So
similar.
Close.
Got the gist, but not exact.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of this story is, next time you go in for an MRI and you have to sign a waiver that they can read your thoughts and there's nothing you can do about it, I would turn around and walk away.
And if you wake up with a scar in the back of your head.
Right. And all of a sudden you get a call from the IRS because you were thinking about evading your taxes. And yeah.
What was that precognition? We'll get there, right? At some point. Oh,
possibly.
I can't even remember what was that movie?
Minority Report.
Oh yeah, Minority Report. Yeah.
Minority Report. Yes. Yeah. See, we're getting closer to that.
Future is
Human
now.
Participants who each spent 16 hours in a functional MRI listening to stories.
Yeah.
That's got to not be good for you.
No.
Well, that's how it learned. That's how you learned. It learned what, when it said, I saw a big truck, I saw a big dog. It's how it learned where that is. So that brings a story I'd like to tell before we wrap up, which is, when you think about ChatGPT and a lot of this AI stuff, a lot of people see this as the bellwether. Well, general AI is here and war games is about to start and these things are smarter than humans. But I want you to think about a scenario. And I just wrote a blog article about this that we're probably going to post. And that is that, if you were given an assignment to be the caretaker of an alien language that you cannot read and you will never be able to read, and you were given an infinite amount of time to take all of the works in that language and dissect them up and, figure out what the words are and what relationship are the words. And you could probably even figure out which sentences describe which words, but you wouldn't know what the words are or what the sentences said. But through correlation and examples and, again, infinite time and all the works of that language, you could be really good at giving answers when someone asked anything, even though you don't understand anything you're saying or anything they're asking.
Yep.
That is ChatGPT.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Are you saying it's not sentient?
I'm saying it's not sentient. And,
okay. All right.
And you're making a joke.
No.
There are people I've talked to who
Yeah.
think it is.
Yeah. It's a sentence completion algorithm, right?
And,
what
and
is
it's
the
an algorithm.
possibility that the next word will be X? Or what is the next word statistically?
Well, where do I mine information that helps with, satisfying this query?
Right.
But understand, it doesn't understand any of the things it says.
Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not. It's pseudo intelligence. It's presenting itself as intelligent. It is not.
So isn't that the first step, though?
Well, it would be.
The first step, as children, we mimic things.
No.
We don't understand what they are, but eventually...
That's a great example, and that's another thing I put in the blog post. If you have a young child, a 2-year-old, that opens up a tablet, turns it on, hits some keystrokes, including enters the PIN, and goes to their favorite video, do you think the child is a technological savant, or have they just learned the steps necessary to watch the Teletubbies or Baby Shark?
Right.
That same child will probably try to click on an underlined word in a paper document because they think it's a link.
Yeah.
They don't yet understand how it works or why it works, but they will. ChatGPT never will.
Right.
It will always be doing things by rote and never understanding what it says.
Do you think it passes the Turing test?
I think it could, but it doesn't mean that it's conscious or sentient or ready to take over the world or
right, but it means that we think it is, and that's what Turing was talking about.
Right. And we've passed that a while ago.
But wait a second, you're saying that the technology doesn't exist yet for it to understand it, but it has the first underpinnings, which is how do I model to interact? How do I create the interface to talk to these things, these meat bags? And now that I have that,
ugly bags of mostly water,
right? But it doesn't understand what it's doing.
Is that a Star Trek? I think it's Star Trek.
Yeah. Ugly bags of mostly water.
Right. And then eventually you'll get quantum computers with statistical modeling that'll go, okay, now I can take this interface.
But you just said
yes,
eventually.
Not today.
How long is eventually? Eventually is not in my lifetime.
Well, Patrick, I wouldn't say that if I were you.
So no computer in the world understands what the letter A actually represents and why we need it.
Yeah.
But it knows that it's 65 on the keyboard and it knows how to represent it.
Here's the question. Do you really know?
I do. And I would tell you, but I don't think you can handle it because you're fake. You're a robot. And I know that because I ate dinner with you and you let me eat all the shrimp cocktail.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But if you don't know what we're talking about, we went to South Boston to Del Frisco's Steakhouse and had a dinner. And
fantastic.
It was unbelievable. We'll put a picture up on the website.
So I'm a big fan of AI. But I don't think it's going to kill us all. I think it will dilute us all soon, but it won't kill us all soon.
Here's the thing, right? Most people, I think, are taking extreme sides. Oh, no, it's okay. I remember when synthesizers came out and drum machines and language.
The truth's in the middle.
The printing press, was disruptive. I don't think it's a threat. And you have the other people who are saying, doomsday, right?
Yeah.
And it's a much more subtle problem than that.
It is. You're right. And
it is going to be the king of misinformation. Absolutely.
If you read the article about Hinton, Jeffrey Hinton, he gets it.
Yeah.
He's not worried about it firing nukes and taking over Skynet.
No.
He's worried about it being a disruptor to societal harmony.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're right.
But in 150 years, where do you see it?
Oh, yeah. I'll be long dead.
Who cares?
Oh, well, maybe. I don't know.
Your grandchildren, however.
Maybe not.
But 150 years ago, if you asked people about flying around to space, they'd be like, yeah, you're nuts.
The jar my head will be in will be bulletproof and fireproof and on a high shelf.
On that note, we're going to call it a show. Thanks a lot for listening. Hey, let your friends know about this stupid show, will you?
Woohoo!
We need more listeners.
Yeah.
And we can't pay for them or anything, but, we'd like that if you do that for us. All right. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.